So I recently bought this Addiesdive watch on a special on AliExpress, and I thought I'd do a quick review of the watch and a bit of a comparison to a cheapie that I also bought from Samda, because I think it bears comparison. So just let me get around to that in a moment. But this came with a steel bracelet, and it was $50. I happened to decide that I don't want the bracelet. I don't usually wear bracelets. I usually wear a leather strap or a nylon strap, depending. But it's really worth pointing out how beautiful and well made this watch is for $50. That's 50 Australian bucks. So we've got the obvious usual Rolex style back remover, and generally speaking, the watch is really, really nicely made. Obviously it's a quartz, it's a Miata movement, but little things like, let's see if you can hear this. How nicely that moves and sounds, really. Now let's compare it to a sea stern that I have, which I'm usually a bit of a Seiko guy, so I prefer them. But anyway, so a very solid feeling click, but it's actually pretty stiff to turn around because of that solid feeling click. So that's a little bit, annoying. But basically, this watch is a fair bit bigger because, well, that's just how these guys decide to make them. But anyway, one of the things that doesn't usually get talked about in reviews is how, if you draw a line in your mind between that that hole and that hole, there's fuck all space in there for a strap, right? So that's why I've had to put this strap on it. Let me see now. Yep. Yep. And it goes into there and then down, because my usual NATO won't fit in there. And you can see that that's actually leaving rub marks on the leather already. And that's just a very thin layer of leather. So if I was to use one of these straps, because that's a bit thicker, it's actually quite a job to jam it in there because of the thickness of that. You actually have to apply an amount of force. Now, a lot of other watches have a bit of a rebate in here, whereas this is just circular. Now, they can actually start the rebate about here, and it goes back at about 30 degrees. That makes more room, but they chose not to. Now, if we compare it to, let me just take that off to make it easier to play with. If we compare it to the little Samda, we go, okay, these are more or less the same size. And this one was $15, right? Now, they're both, at a glance, if you're not really much of a watch person, you probably won't actually tell the difference. But the difference is found in the fact that this is not stainless steel. This is some other metal that's been chrome plated. And it also has a pretty crappy back on it. Let's turn that around the right way. And you can see already that it's getting some pitting there from wear and the NATO strap that I normally put it on. So this doesn't have a lockdown crown, so it just turns. And of course, this one does. But it's got actually a little bit better than that, because if we unscrew the crown, we will reveal a second O-ring just in there. See if it'll focus closely enough. Yeah, maybe it does. So this has actually got slightly better waterproofing than the regular. So the construction of the case is really good. Also, this bezel, as I've said, has a very nice feel to it, a very nice sound. And this, whoops, where did it go? Ah, there. This one not only feels and sounds a little bit crappy, it actually is a bit loose. And that's the movement that's occurring there. But what I kind of wanted to find out when I bought the Addiesdives was the handset the same? And to be honest, no matter how I've looked at it, I can't tell the difference in the handset. So apart from the fact that this has got a much nicer dial compared to the black, but this also came in a plain black, and apart from the fact that it's got better lume, this basically doesn't even have any lume. The Addiesdive has got, what's the right way of phrasing this here? Much better markers. So I like the markers. I still don't really like the handset. It's a little bit undersized from what I think it should be. I think that the hour hand should be a little bit longer and a little bit bigger for the proportions of the dial, but it's already what I think of as being a little bit of a grubby small dial anyway. So if we compare it with the C Stern, which in my opinion, this is a copy of a 62 mass, which is a lot more expensive. This was $160 Australian, and this was $50 Australian. So, but you can actually buy one of these with a mechanical movement in it, if you particularly are a movement snob. But you might notice, by the way, this is showing the wrong time, and that's because I don't wear it every day, because I just don't always wear the same watch every day. And of course, it being an automatic, it much better suits being worn every day. So if you just want to pick up a watch and put it on, then quartz means that you'll always have the time right. For interest, that's the watch that I wear every day, most days. And that's a little Samdra as well. And I like it because it's actually really thin and slim, so it fits on my wrist and doesn't bash into stuff. So when I'm working on my motorbike, that's the watch that I tend to put on. So for anyone who wants to get a well-priced diver, this, just putting it on now, this is a really well-priced diver. I suspect you'll need to get your own case back tool for it. And I could just move it with my fingertips with that amount of pressure. So I don't know exactly what the right torque is to get that to seat nicely, but I'm willing to bet that it's not that high, because you don't want to actually just squeeze the O-rings down, and under pressure, the deeper you go, the more it actually applies pressure anyway. But that brings me to another point, and that is that there is an awful lot of full-on wanking about divers' watches in the market, and I don't really understand it, and I think most of it's because the kitty-witties who own these things, if I said that they don't have a clue, that's actually kind of misleading, because not only do they not have a clue, what they actually think they know is actually wrong. So they actually have negative knowledge. But basically, I don't like the unidirectional bezel. For a start, there are dive watches around there that have a bidirectional bezel, and in fact, my first divers was a Seiko that had a bidirectional bezel anyway. But let's say we'd put a timer on, 5 minutes ago, and I just wanted to check something, every, see how long it takes. Well, let's say we come back in at that time, 10 minutes from now. If I want to restart the timer, instead of just being able to clickety-clickety-click and around to there, I've got to go around and around and around and around and around and around. And there we are. We're ready to start our next timer. This is defended by the kitty-witties who go, oh, but if you knock the bezel while you're out diving, you'll die. It's like, it's been a long time since divers depended on this thing for their safety. I haven't been diving since 1999, and we used dive computers back then. So anyone who goes diving and relies on their dive watch is a complete fuckwit. There's just no other way to express it. So why not just have a nice click stop that goes both ways? Because there are still watches, and they're usually quite high-end watches, where they actually only go one way. Well, sorry, they actually go both ways. So, yeah. Anyway, if you're after a nice little well-priced dive watch, I normally don't buy blue. I normally, as you can see, tend to go for a more subdued colour, although the Breitling copy over there is not that way inclined. But yeah, I'm really glad I went to blue. It's just really nice to look at, and I think it just works really well with this red leather strap, which was like $14. So fucking hell. Just make sure it clicks in, because that's really embarrassing if you go to put it on and the watch just falls straight off. So there you go. Not bad at all.